Hello, welcome to Portfolio Management, Keeping Your Ducks in a Row. I'm Lisa White.
Hi, I'm Tracy Codell. Thanks so much for joining us.
We really miss being with you guys in Orlando, but we're super excited to be able to share our presentation with you still.
Lisa and I both work for Western and Southern Financial Group, which is a Fortune 500 company based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And just to give you some context, Western and Southern is in the life insurance industry, which means we are regulated and there are always multiple compliance projects competing for the same resources that work on revenue-generating projects. Our IT department, which is over 500 people, is a shared service within Western Southern, and our time is billable. We use ServiceNow's time management and resource management modules and process to track time and resource rates. I'll talk more about how this fits into our overall portfolio management strategy as we go along. Lisa and I were chosen to speak about portfolio management at the Knowledge 19 conference last year, and we actually had 2 sessions, which was amazing. We laid out our IT business management journey on the ServiceNow platform in our first session called Portfolio 101, Getting Your Ducks in the Same Pond. We talked through the strategy and rollout of converting off of a legacy time tracking system and project management tools. In Portfolio 201, Getting Your Ducks in a Row, we talked through our first years of maturity and got into some of the technical details about how we use the IT business management modules. This slide is clickable. There are links to both presentations that are available out in the ServiceNow 19 library, as well as the video that ServiceNow filmed of us live on stage, presenting with customer Q&A and everything. Between the 2 sessions, we spoke to about 800 attendees, and since the conference last year, a number of ServiceNow customers have reached out to ask us specific follow-up questions. All of that interest motivated us to submit a presentation for Knowledge 20 to talk about how we keep our portfolio of work on track. Essentially, what are the tactics, tools, and processes for keeping our ducks in a row?
So how does Western and Southern manage their portfolios? Our first resource priority goes towards our operational support work. So these are things like your admin time, PTO, education and training, and keep the lights on work like incidents, problems, change, our catalog tasks. Our second resource priority goes towards our strategic project work. So these are your big rocks, the things that align to your enterprise goals. They could be high risk, cross-functional, and we manage these items through the PMO project managers. And finally, our operational project work. So these are the small pebbles. They're your departmental goals that have a lower cost and lower impact. And they won't need PMO support to execute. So it seems that we have our ducks in a row, but how do you keep your ducks from being pushed off course? So I love this picture, which is actually from the Rubber Duck Regatta in Cincinnati, which is a fundraiser for our free store food bank. But it just reminds me that even with the best laid plans, sometimes that influx of IT work can push your ducks off course.
What are the tactics, tools, and processes for keeping our ducks in a row? At Western and Southern, we maintain a holistic view into all of our incoming IT work. We prepare for the known projects, but also have a strategy for handling the unknowns. And finally, we've figured out how to say no by saying when, utilizing trade-off discussions.
Okay, so our first recommendation is to create a holistic view of your entire IT portfolio. So we've worked really hard at getting all of our IT work to flow into a single platform. But we also want to provide a simplistic view into all that IT work. So when you're trying to capture how the work comes into IT, how it's organized, how it's reported on, and how you manage your resources around it, that can get pretty hectic. So we created this simplistic view to represent all of those things. So our IT work comes in through our IT service portal, and then we've broken it down into 3 main entry points.
Incidents are one way that we bring work into our IT department. Incidents are break-fix type of work, which is normally a must-do for any IT shop. This is keep the lights on work, and we block time or reserve time for that activity using operational resource plans. Another way that we bring in work is catalog requests. You might call these service requests. These are, production support, run the business type of requests that every IT department has. Things like hardware or software requests, but also things for, requests for IT services, such as an ad hoc report, or hey, spin up a new SharePoint site. Or my personal favorite, which is ask IT a question. This is an out-of-the-box item that we activated so that our business units could send questions to us through the portal, instead of calling their favorite programmer and disrupting the flow of work. Now our business units have a request number and the ability to track their question through the portal, instead of worrying about losing their question through the black hole of voicemail. We block time for this production support, run the business type of work through operational resource plans.
And the third way that we bring work into IT is through our project work. And we have a catalog item called Submit an Idea. That's where the business enters the idea. And once that idea is qualified and approved, it's going to move over from idea into our demand queue. So for our strategic efforts, we do have a pretty strong governance process where we vet the demand, and that's what we're working on next with our operational work. But once that demand is approved to move forward, we're going to convert it over into a project. We have both strategic and operational projects, and we manage our resources through individual resource plans. So a second way that we want to give a view into our IT work management is a more business-centric view, and we use Gartner's Run, Grow, Transform model for this. So we've taken that model, we've added some sub-classifications so we could also understand things like percentage of effort going towards expense reduction or revenue generation, risk reduction, or even our run activities. So here you can kind of see we've got some industry averages that we took from Gartner, and then this is where Western and Southern is at today. So we've talked about having a strong portfolio governance, and that's our second recommendation for preparing for your knowns and unknowns. So again, when our business partners enter an idea, especially a strategic idea, it's going to come in and hit our demand pipeline. We actually utilize the ServiceNow states as part of this demand pipeline. So I know that a demand that's in the submitted state is building its business case and developing the CBA. But when that demand is in the approved state, I know portfolio governance has already given the approval to move forward. And then we actually make sure we prep that demand, looking to make sure resources are ready to start before we ever flip that over to project execution.
When we implemented the IT business management modules, we made a conscious decision to stay out of the box, meaning we didn't try to force our process onto the tool and customize. Lisa is able to manage the flow and strategize incoming projects because we're out of the box. She mentioned utilizing the states of a demand. Keeping something that simple allows her to use all of the out-of-the-box dashboards and reporting.
So as we're preparing for knowns and unknowns, we have our IT demand management team working these demands. We've made a decision to invest time in demand because we want to put forward well-vetted initiatives to our portfolio governance committee. So our portfolio governance committee consists of 4 members. It's our Chief Information Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Marketing Officer, and Chief Administrative Officer. And when we take an item to them, we have a team that works to make sure they've collected all the needed information. So we have enterprise business analysts that are working on high-level scope, risk, and IT cost. Corporate finance, we partner with them. They're helping the business identify benefits, and they're also having funding discussions at this point. And then our IT managers, we ask them to own and enter resource plans during the demand stage so we can get costing information. So as you can see, we kind of funnel that down, all that information and all those initiatives down to our demand intake team who work on that before then we take that back out to the project teams. So it's one thing to prepare for what you know is coming, but you also have to prepare for the unknowns. And we have a tool called Meister Plan that we use that really helps us kind of handle how we're going to bring in those unknowns. So we were introduced to Meister Plan actually at Knowledge 18. And Meister Plan promotes lean project portfolio management. So they really promote, that strategized area where you are looking at what initiatives are going to support your enterprise strategies and goals. The collection of information through demand intake so that you can evaluate and prioritize these demands for addition to your project portfolio. The execution phase where you are implementing these projects in the most efficient way possible. And then taking all that information and taking those inputs help you decide what the future of your portfolio is going to look like.
Our third recommendation is using ServiceNow Data to help you have trade-off discussions. Meister Plan is a plugin that sits on top of ServiceNow and uses the ServiceNow data, specifically resource plans as well as project and demand data to provide these beautiful Gantt views to help us keep our portfolio in alignment.
So as you can see in this screenshot, I have the ability to drill down to see constraints by role, but I can even see them by named resource. The second really powerful thing that Meister Plan provides is scenario planning. So that way you can have that conversation with your executives about not only what your portfolio looks like now, but what's it going to look like when you bring in a new initiative and what's that going to do to your resources.
When we implemented Meister Plan, we realized immediate benefits, including data validation. Through the Meister Plan interface and using the built-in Meister Plan reports, we were able to spot bad data that we had in ServiceNow right away. For example, it was easy to calculate capacity and see utilization for our resources. Meister Plan uses a straight calculation in its reporting, meaning number of hours times number of resources, to see our whole IT department's capacity and utilization.
A second area that we're just now starting to do data validation in is through the visualization of resource plans, IT managers can identify where they're missing resource plans. Also, by having the visualization, when someone turns red, the IT managers can now quickly go in and see where they're over capacity. And finally, Tracy mentioned the reporting. The reporting through Meister Plan is powerful in a lot of different ways. One of those ways is that it can easily flip between hours and FTE. So for us, that was a request from our executives, was to see this resource information by FTE, and Meister Plan and its reporting makes that very easy.
So Meister Plan is a tool that we use to help keep our ducks in a row. But even without Meister Plan, you can use ServiceNow's out-of-the-box resource management and time tracking modules to help you change the conversation from saying, no, we can't take on new work, to when. If you have data in ServiceNow to support your position, then the trade-off discussion is much easier to have. At Western and Southern, we use both resource plans, which is the plan part of the slide, and time cards, which is the actuals part of the slide, to provide data to both the portfolio team and our executives so they can have data-driven trade-off conversations. On the plan side, when we look at resource management, we put resource plans against demands and projects, even projects where the team performing the work is an agile team. This allows us to have a view into which resources are working on what specific strategic and operational projects. Think how a conversation could go with your executives when you have a constrained critical resource and you're able to have a view into what that person is scheduled to work over the next 3 to 6 months. Data right at your fingertips. We also use ServiceNow's operational resource plans, which don't tie back to a specific project, but instead allow us to block or reserve capacity and time for keep the lights on activities. We mentioned this earlier when we spoke about using incidents as one of the 3 ways to keep a holistic view into incoming work. We also do not allocate resources up to 100%. We target to allocate our resources up to about 85%, so we have about 15% availability. This allows us to have room to deal with unknowns, or if we need to pivot a project or slow down, or even if we've just underestimated the amount of time needed. At Western and Southern, we also use time cards and the time tracking module, which gives us actuals. I mentioned earlier that our IT department is a shared service and our time is billable. We have 3 different basic rates in our IT department, a high rate, a low rate, and then a 0, which translates into an infrastructure charge. This allows us to send a chargeback file to accounting to bill for IT services.
So one awesome thing Tracy was able to do to help me be able to provide total cost of ownership information was use the rate model to be able to calculate both a fully loaded cost, where we do assign a cost to those 0 rate resources, and a chargeback cost. So now, when we are preparing the CBA back in the demand submitted state, we can use this information in tool to provide that costing information.
Using time card actuals in conjunction with our resource plans gives us the full picture when we have a trade-off discussion. We have time card data to show how accurate our plans and estimates are, as well as data to tell when the project is running hot. And we might need to adjust our plans because an effort is taking longer. We also use time card data to help us with our total cost of ownership for apps and services. When we look at trending data and see that an app is consistently costing us more money to fix or upgrade, then it's time to have a conversation about the value we are receiving. Overall, when we look at our trending data and compare resource plans against time card actuals, our goal currently is to be plus or minus 20%. Any deviation needs to be triaged by a project manager or resource manager. But ultimately, our goal is to get better and better at estimating and tighten up our target as we continue to mature our process. One of the neat features in ServiceNow to help you maintain good resource management data is the allocation board. This provides an Excel-like experience so you can more easily manage resource plans. We've mentioned good data is paramount. The board has the ability to be generated for a specific project, so a PM can check plan versus actuals, and make adjustments to plans, or even hunt for additional resources using the resource finder. That's the view I'm showing here. The top part of the screen is a specific project, and the bottom shows me looking for a ServiceNow developer from our resource pool. As you can see, I'm able to view all the ServiceNow developers and what they are currently planned to work. Another use case for the allocation board is for a resource manager. A resource manager could create a board for their specific team to view the resource plans and make ongoing adjustments as needed.
All right, so what are the key takeaways from today? The first one is that IT work management helps provide a holistic view into all IT work, giving visibility into your IT delivery and your business outcome view. Second, portfolio management helps prepare for what you know and what you don't know. By using a governance process and controlling your demand pipeline, you can prepare for what you know and be flexible to the unknowns. And finally, demand management sets the stage for appropriate trade-off discussions. Analyzing what-if scenarios and your plan versus actuals will give you better information for those trade-off discussions. So feel free to reach out to Tracy or I with any questions because we love to talk ServiceNow.
Thanks so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you next year in Vegas.